About 2,000 business leaders, investors, and policymakers from Africa and around the world are gathered in Kigali, the capital of Rwanda, for the annual summit of the Africa CEO Forum. The summit is the largest international meeting of the African private sector, with 2 days of conferences, debates, and high-level meetings dedicated to highlighting the driving role of the private sector in the development of the continent. Joining us now from Kigali in Rwanda is Amir Yahmed, President, Africa CEO Forum and CEO of Jeune Afrique Media Group. Good morning and good to see you on the morning show.
Good morning to have you, Thank you for having me. I'm sorry.
All right, great to have you. Well, straight to it, what inspired the selection of this year's theme for the Africa CEO Forum, and how does it reflect the current economic and geopolitical landscape of Africa?
Basically, if you remember, over the last 2 editions, we've had a big conversation about the need for the continent to have more sovereignty. That conversation came from an abrupt change in the economic landscape. We had 2 decades of growth fueled by easy credit, commodity boom, and globalization, and that came at an end after COVID, where public finance were drained, where there was a geopolitical shift, creating basically the end of globalization as we knew it. And so in that context, it opened new doors for Africa, and realizing that we had a strong need for more sovereignty. But at the same time, when we prepared for this edition, we heard the private sector who was quite worried about the situation. As if you look at Africa thoroughly, you realize that at least 30% of our countries are in a kind of direct or covert confrontation. You realize that crucial transformative projects like the CFTA have not shown many signs of progresses. And in terms of finance, there was a very interesting summit in Nairobi that gave very worrying figures about the increase of poverty in the continent and about the financial deterioration of our global situation. And from all these worries was born the theme of the forum.
You're talking about what inspired the selection for this year's theme and reflecting the current economic and geopolitical landscape of Africa. Please go ahead with your thoughts.
Yeah, so I don't know where you lost me, but I was saying that basically during the last 2 conversations, from the change of economic situation, we concluded that there's a change for Africa to gain more sovereignty and that it opened numerous opportunities for the private sector. But this year, when we prepared for the theme of the forum, we realized that we had a private sector worried about 3 main issues. The first one is that if you look thoroughly at Africa, you realize that basically the continent has 30% of its country, which is in either direct or covert confrontation. So it's a question of unity. There's a question of attractivity as a crucial project like, for example, the CFTA. It's a transformative project, but 5 years after its inception, it has really no real signs of progress. And last but not least, we have also a financial deterioration of our global balance sheet. Plus, as we saw in the last summit in Nairobi, the IDA summit, for the first time in 25 years, the return of poverty on the continent, an increase by 25 million of people living with $2 or less. So from these worries was born the theme of the forum. At the table or on the menu, it's not a gastronomic idea. It's just that we need, if we want to Africa to secure a place at global negotiation or not to land on the menu of leading economies, we need Africa to recognize the seriousness of the situation and to agree on the urgent need to change course.
Clarification about the theme at the table or on the menu, because I was intrigued by that. I thought maybe they were going to serve a pepper soup and jollof rice in Kigali, but I know that the main theme is about shaping the future of Africa. But I would like to ask you, what are the specific expectations this year? Could you help us outline what the key agendas are, the anticipated discussions and potential outcomes?
Yes, no, you're right. We're not planning to open a restaurant in Kigali. The at the table or the on the menu means really where does Africa wants to stand? Do we really want to be in a position to be recognized as a global continent with its driving forces, or are we going to be out of these discussions? And for that, the agenda of this edition is really about transformative agendas, and we seriously think that what we want to discuss for these 2 days is the leadership agenda, the integration agenda, the digital agenda, and the finance agenda. These are the four issues that we want to be at the center of a discussion, and with one specific attention to the leadership issue. If you are looking at recent history, we have seen 5 countries that have gone through a military coup. You have seen messy elections. You have seen countries that have been either have had plunging currency crisis or debt default, and we need to ask ourselves what is the reason for these things to happen, as they kind of remind us of a familiar context from 20 years ago. So the real question that we want to address here is, why are we in this situation again? And I think we cannot answer that question without talking about the leadership issue. When I talk about leadership, it means governance and accountability. I think in the last 20 years, basically, we kind of look the other way around when those issues, accountability and governance, were not held at the highest standard. And that if Africa wants to get back on track, all of our economies need to put that leadership agenda at the core of their transformation.
Very apt. So let's look forward to the future now, sort of like a Nostradamus and looking into our crystal balls. What are the long-term strategic goals set for this forum? How does it plan to adapt the evolving economic environment climate to continue to serve as a pivotal platform for economic debate and decision-making on the African continent?
The Africa CEO Forum was created in 2012, so now it's in its 11th edition. When we created the CEO Forum, we wanted to create a platform to bring together private sector and public sector with several goals in mind. First, putting at the agenda the private-led sector growth theme that we thought needed to be at the core of growth policy from our political leaders. We wanted to bridge the continent, to create bridges between the biggest companies of the continent that at the time had problems knowing each other or working with each other. We wanted to create a platform where the people from the investment community could connect with our CEO. And I think the CEO Forum, after 10 years, is now a resounding success, and it has played a catalytic role in that. That being said, our DNA is to be agenda setting. I told you about the transformative agendas that we would like to push. We have already started to work on one of them, which is the financing agenda, because we are going to hold the 3rd edition of a new forum called the Africa Financial Summit. It's going to be an Africa CEO Forum for the financial industry, banks, insurance, fintechs, regulators. And this financial summit that will be held in Morocco by the end of this year in Casablanca on the 9th and 10th of December is a platform whose goal is to create a true Africa of financial services and help all the big companies. You have a lot of them in Nigeria, Access, GT, Zenith, all these companies to take the place of the big international companies which most of them left the continent. And so we think there's a space for our continental groups to grow and to create a best-in-class financial industry. So that's the goal of the Africa Financial Summit. It's 3rd edition in Morocco this year. And we plan to announce a new initiative dedicated to leadership during the forum and create a new platform dedicated to young political leaders.
Well, Amir, this has been done in Kigali in partnership with the IFC, International Finance Corporation. 2,000 private sector players interacting, discussing the future of Africa. Could you tell us about some of the main attendees at this 2024 edition in Kigali?
Yes, of course, we will have we have a great lineup of attendees. Of course, you were talking about. I'm going to start with institutions, private sector. You talked about our partner, IFC partner, our managing director, Maktar Diop, will of course be there, along with a really good lineup of big-time CEOs, whether African or international. We will have the MTN global CEO, Ralph Mupita. We'll have the global CEO of the oil and gas company Total. We have Aliko Dangote from Dangote Group, who will be attending, the chairman and co-founder of Access Group and Coronation, Ike Imukwede. And these are among the name of the, sorry, I have a call, among the big names on the private sector side. And in the government side, we will have, of course, the President Paul Kagame, who will be attending with the Mozambique President Felipe Nyusi. We will have the President of Kenya, who will be attending, and many, many others.
Well, thank you very much, Amir Ben Yahmed. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, and we wish you a successful
And of
conference.
course, we're expecting you.
Yes, Arise is
We're waiting for you also, because
Arise is fully represented on ground, and we'll definitely.
There's a very important issue I would like to share with you. This year, we would like very much the media to play an even bigger part in that conversation, because we're going to talk a lot about leadership, and we need the media to be a part of a big stakeholder in that situation, in order to push everybody, private sector, political leaders, to be to understand that we need to account ourselves to a higher standard if we want to have real pathways to a prosperous Africa. And so I hope Arise will be playing a big part in that conversation.
We certainly will. Rotus is on ground in Kigali, and we'll be definitely speaking to him live on the morning show and different belts on Arise News. So definitely being a big part of that conversation in Kigali. Thank you very much, Yahmed, for joining us this morning.